Dominic, good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
What's your reaction to this news?
It seems to me it just gets worse. First, we have Johnson behaving in absolutely classic fashion, blaming everybody, throwing mud in every direction, showing complete disrespect for the committee, which was a cross-party committee with a Conservative majority, which investigated his behaviour and concluded perfectly logically that he told a pack of lies and knew exactly what he was doing, and is entirely of a piece with Johnson's well-established behaviour, and then flounces off because he wants to escape the consequences of his actions. If really he wanted to make some profound statement, he could have stayed on, he could have argued against the penalty, he could have stood up in the chamber of the House of Commons and expressed his views. There's no necessity that he would have had to vacate his seat. It depends on whether there'd been a successful recall petition. None of that. Flounces off, blames everybody else, and now we have the spectacle of close acolytes saying he's going as well, causing maximum embarrassment to the Prime Minister and a by-election. And I have to say, I'm by no means convinced in the current climate that those seats will be held by the Conservatives. On past showing, I think the tide of public anger against the Conservative Party in government is now very great, and all caused by Mr. Johnson's own behaviour.
And of course, I mean, you had a very difficult time in the Conservative Party, particularly over the Brexit issue, the issue that really became to define Boris Johnson and his leaderships. Now, he and others around him have claimed that his witch hunt and the hounding of him has been all part of some kind of Remainer plot. Do you feel that there's been a Remainer plot? Do you feel that you've played a part in contributing to Boris Johnson's downfall?
Well, if I have played a part in contributing to his downfall, I'm very pleased, because his behaviour throughout his time as Prime Minister has been absolutely appalling. It was obvious from the moment he became leader of the party and Prime Minister that he was unsuitable for office. He's somebody who doesn't understand the truth. He doesn't understand principles of propriety under which a Prime Minister might operate. I have to say, even then, despite his behaviour in the early months of in office, I was prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt even after I'd left Parliament. But it was perfectly apparent very quickly that he's just a pathological liar. He's also chaotic. He has no policies. The policies are all smoke and mirrors. They're all about promises that you make to the public, which are in fact incapable of implementation. So he's been a complete disaster. Brexit, he's the architect of Brexit, and Brexit has proved disastrous for this country. And his management of Brexit and its consequences has been disastrous. I doubt very much I played any part in his departure. I certainly expressed my views about him and his standards and his behaviour, because you're dealing here really with a con man. But the fact is that the Conservative Party has allowed itself to be conned by this individual, and there are still members of the Conservative Party, incredibly, who still believe that in some way he's the answer to the party and the country's problems. But ultimately, he's been got rid of because a vast majority of the parliamentary party have realised that he is a complete liability.
And what do you think lies ahead for the Conservative Party? Because it feels like there's very much two Conservative parties. There is the Conservative Party that you were part of when you were a Conservative MP, a much more one nation type of Conservative, still very much with Conservative values in terms of the economy and society and how things should be organised. And then there is the other side of the Conservative Party, which we saw at some of these conferences last a couple of weeks ago, the kind of national Conservatives, the more the sort of Lee Anderson side of things, the Priti Patel, the sort of Suella Braverman side of things. What do you think, which direction do you think the Conservative Party will go in? If they lose the next general election, and the polls are looking that way, there will be a big ideological fight for the battle of the soul of the Conservative Party. It happened with the Labour Party when we fell out of power. Which direction do you think the Conservative Party is ultimately going to pick?
Difficult question to answer, but the immediate answer is it's likely to lurch to the nationalist right, because unfortunately the membership who select the leader are, I think, in majority of that inclination. And we've seen a steady hemorrhage from the Conservative Party of reasonable members. And if the members determine who ultimately becomes the leader of the party, then if they're offered a choice between a nationalist crazy and somebody who, quite frankly, is level-headed and understands what the problems are, I fear very much they may go for the former. And of course, Mr. Sunak will not survive losing an election. But it's possible that they might find a compromise and actually pitch on somebody who's got some ability to govern as opposed to ability to go and make speeches. But it is, I think, a very serious crisis. And this has been utterly predictable. It was predictable ever since this section of the party, encouraged by Mr. Johnson, effectively took it over.